Selena, what's going on with the episode today?
Well, Jordan, we have a little bit of a shift for today's episode because, things change in showbiz. So we did plan on having a kind of a different guest for today, but we made some changes and we've moved up one of our guests that we're very excited about.
Awesome. So who do we have on the episode today?
We have Phil Crone, and he is the executive officer at the Dallas Builders Association. And we're going to be chatting with him about making the most of your home builder community.
That sounds like a fun conversation.
It's going to be fabulous.
All right, let's get into it.
Let's go.
You're listening to Build Up, the Homebuilder podcast, brought to you by ZGN. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Selena.
We're marketers
and brand strategists.
And we love applying our expertise to the home building industry. Join us as we uncover industry insights, chat with colleagues, and explore exciting ways to push the home building world forward.
Welcome to the show, Phil. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Really happy to be here.
So, Phil, you're obviously we've already introduced you on the episode, but you're the executive officer for the Dallas Builders Association. And what we really want to talk to you today is about the builder community. Selena and I and Santana, we've worked in home builder marketing for many, many years in lots of different markets. And it doesn't really seem to matter where we work, but there really seems to be this deep sense of community with home builders, no matter where we go. That's something that you experienced in Dallas as well?
It is, and it's rather fascinating and intriguing. Really a big reason why I love working for the community that I do is that this huge, massive market that has, 60,000 plus homes that get started every year in it. But on the other hand, you've got a pretty small community of builders, even though numerically they're quite large. You just have this feeling that we're all in this together, and a lot of that collaboration really helps us achieve what we're trying to achieve collectively for the industry, which means trying to just take some of that uncertainty out of a very uncertain world and make sure that they've got a good place to do business, and most of all can deliver attainable housing for their clients.
So I know obviously in different places around North America, builders associations have different roles or kind of different responsibilities. Some carry more of that leadership role, like kind of what you were talking about, Phil, with helping the builders with permits and talking to officials and government officials. So I have a question around, where do you see kind of the biggest opportunity for your association members to get more involved and get more value out of what you offer?
Well, I think, and this is kind of a common thread for every association, that we a lot of times try to characterize it like a gym membership in terms of we have the equipment here for you to strengthen those relationships. And I know, especially over the last 2 years, the lack of just real in-person networking, I think, is kind of created that desire to strengthen those bonds and to get out there now that it's more prudent to do so. And we try to tell people that you need to show up. You need to come to the variety of events that we do. We provide those opportunities, again, to strengthen the relationships that you've been trying to build, especially in the craziness that we're trying to navigate. But I can tell you, just by my own experience getting out there, I learn more about what's happening in our market. I learn more about the concerns that builders have just by talking to as many of them as possible, as well as the trades and the suppliers and, just everybody that plays a role out here. They've got a story to tell. They've got their own things that they're dealing with. And collectively, when you kind of stitch that quilt together, you get a good viewpoint of what's happening here.
I know the Dallas Builders Association does those kind of informal networking chat events, which I feel like a lot of people look at and they're like, it's not worth my time to go to that kind of thing. Or, maybe they sign up and they just get busy in their day and they don't end up going. But it's those kinds of events and places that you can actually get a lot of value from, understanding that other people are having the same problems you have, or understanding ways of fixing things that you never thought of before.
These days, we'll have certainly education classes that'll really delve into one specific topic where people can kind of work and talk about those things. We'll have basically, happy hour type of things where people can blow off some steam. That's, I had mentioned before, some people are, wind them up and watch them go, and they can jump into a room of strangers and make it work. One thing we try to emphasize, especially with our new members, is that, you may walk in there and think it's going to be like your, seventh grade semi-formal dance, and, everyone's looking at each other and nobody wants to, jump in the middle. Well, there's probably the majority of people that are there that are in the same position and just want to meet people. And there's nothing that gives me greater happiness than to see just those natural conversations happen, and people, be able to set up really good business relationships, whether it's directly buying a product or just being a resource for somebody. It really is the community in every sense in terms of how that pans out. And there are so many people that just kind of awkwardly stumbled into their first meeting that have been stalwarts in our association for many decades, and some have been in senior leadership, some have just been around to support and mentor, and that's cool too. After 16 years of seeing this, I've been able to kind of watch people run that whole gamut.
I think networking is such an interesting thing, because so many people are so afraid of networking and just sort of having a conversation and breaking into a conversation. How do I do that? And what's the right way to do it? And I think it's so great that, there are events and things that builder associations put on, because at the end of the day, none of those people would be there if they didn't want to talk to other people. And so going up and just starting a conversation with somebody, yes, feels very awkward, but that's almost the expectation. That's, people are in that room because they want to talk to people. If they didn't want to talk to people, they wouldn't be in that room.
Yeah, and that's part of the exercise that you have to go in understanding that, you're going to need to do. And the other thing that and I think this goes for every single organization like ours, no matter where it is don't show up there and just kind of, throw a suitcase out there and pop your product out. And the one thing that is really great about this industry, and maybe it's deliciously old fashioned, is that people want to get to know you, the person, and your story and who you are. And by osmosis, they're going to know who you work for and what the product is and everything else. In so many cases, even in a big market like Dallas, you'll be the face of the franchise for that product.
I have a term that I like to use for what you're describing in terms of the just bringing out your suitcase and setting up your product. I lovingly call it the pitch slap, because no one ever wants it. It surprises you, and it always makes everyone feel uncomfortable. It's not a good way to do business in any industry, but I imagine especially so in the home builder space.
Yeah, I'm going to borrow that and make sure that my articulation is spot on when I do.
A lot of diction in telling people that you don't want to be pitch slapped.
Yes, exactly. So that's probably one that you throw out there and characterize in 2 beers or less. But definitely a good way to put it. And unfortunately, you'll see a lot of times those are the ones that tend to get most frustrated, and they want immediate returns in terms of, hey, I came to this meeting and I didn't get any business out of it. Well, this it's more of a farming thing than a fishing thing, and you have to get your name out there, build those relationships, and especially in this market, it's only a matter of time before builders are looking for other alternatives, just with all the supply chain challenges that they're dealing with. And if you're patient and you wait in the bullpen there, you're gonna get the call.
That was so well put. Phil, I agree completely. I also think that home building and home buying, when somebody is buying a home, they go through that process of needing to build trust, needing to really get to know the builder. And it's not a quick, maybe now, maybe sometimes it's a quick purchase, but usually it takes a long time for somebody to feel comfortable to invest a large sum of money with a company. And I think that should be translated over to relationships within the industry as well. So spend exactly what you're saying, just spending time, getting to know each other, sharing those experiences is so important. And, one conversation that you think just might be about the weather could turn into something so much more impactful and insightful and help an organization find a solution maybe they were struggling with.
A couple weeks ago, we have a community college that we partner with, and they've got a construction management program and a lot of young people in there. And the one thing I kept emphasizing to them over and over, whether it's communicating with a client within which this will be probably the largest purchase they ever make, and with sums of money that they've never fathomed that they'd be putting on the table before, or just a trade partner or coworker. It's in general communication skills, but it's really at the heart of it, the ability to empathize. I think that, there are a lot of things in this world that we'd be able to probably advance ourselves a lot more on if we were able to have a little bit more empathy and understanding of where people are coming from. And, that proverbial walk a mile in their shoes, what I told these construction management students is, get to know what your electrician is dealing with. Get to know what your HVAC technician is worried about. Every single opportunity here to meet somebody gives you a chance to, even if you don't walk a mile in their shoes, walk 100 meters. See, I went to metric because it's a Canadian podcast here. So
thank you for
walk,
that. The conversion
walk a little,
appreciated.
Yeah. Walk a little bit in their shoes and just get an understanding of what their world looks like, because their world is inextricably linked to what you're dealing with in this whole sphere that is our industry. And with that, you'll develop a lot of wisdom well before your years. And I'm hoping that that's something that they took to heart, because I've seen that ability to empathize really translate to good careers, good relationships, and just a lot of good, even with the goodwill with the home buyers who, they're struggling now trying to deal with the cost increases. But if you have somebody who on the other side of things is truly empathetic and is doing a good job of informing you, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable walking through this situation and that transaction. And it's the same with home building as it would be, in the medical profession or anything else where there's serious issues or serious money involved, or both.
I think a lot of people come in and they buy memberships to associations, or they become part of different clubs and groups, and they look at it as, what can you do for me? And, what is sort of that one way, I've given you money, and now what can you do for me? And how can you make me more money? And how can you help me win? But I think if you look at it more in this fashion of, getting to know people and empathizing and, sharing your knowledge and sharing your value, and making it more of a two-way interaction and really becoming a part of a community and a club, it just is so much better for all parties when you can take it beyond, just that single, what can you do for me, and change it into what can we do for each other and how can we help each other. It just takes it to a whole different place that's so much more valuable.
Yeah, I agree. And I try to emphasize as much as I can about, we're here to serve. We're going to do everything from the association staff side that we can, but also, ask what you can do for your association and therefore your industry, because it's a virtuous circle in that sense that, the more volunteer time, which is valuable, especially these days, and other help that we can get from these members, the better we can advance. And, whether it's on our membership committee, just making a call, that's a great example, because we've got a membership director who's paid to do that. But if that call comes from your peer, and that call comes from somebody who is intrinsically motivated enough, and the membership means enough to them that they're going to take that time, that's going to resonate more than anything that by and large I can do with a call or a membership director could do with a call.
Phil, I wanted to ask you if you have a story or an example of a builder or otherwise who has kind of gone above and beyond and has really gotten the most value out of their community membership. And how did that come together?
Yeah, definitely. So many examples that I could probably share on this. And, they're probably by and large, these are, some past presidents and other big volunteers. But I think the one, as I look back and just, want to kind of share his story, it's a guy named Michael Turner, who is a past president of our association. And When he was president back in 2016, 2017, he really had a passion for trying to engage in the construction trade programs and some of the, in many cases, fledgling vocational schools in the area, and sometimes some pretty tough areas. But it was because he had, talking about empathy again, he had grown up in one of those programs and started out as a tile setter. And really, as he kind of got more into the trade side, started to understand holistically, just from what I was talking about before, spending a little bit of time with actually another iconic custom builder who he was able to work with. And, lo and behold, after a few more years, he's able to stitch together this knowledge of, not only where he started in the trade school, but, working in the trades and then seeing how this builder accomplished some things that he put it together and has become probably the most technically proficient custom builder in the market. Because you ask him like where he went to college, and he said, well, I didn't go to college, I went to work. And, that's amazing because, he was able to, teach himself as much as, anybody can learn out there. And it just shows how open this industry is to everybody. It shows a great example of someone who's been able to give back and understand where he started. And now our building is under repair because of our big winter storm, at least big for us, that we had last year. He's leading the rebuild for that. And just seeing all the knowledge that he accumulated going back into our association and our office, it's really neat. And this is a guy that academically, he doesn't have a lot of degrees on the wall, but he's got an awful lot of wisdom that he's accumulated from those experiences, and then the spirit of service just to give it back to those who are hopefully going to come after him. And he's been an inspiration to me in that regard.
I love that story. I think for me, like listening to that, some of the secret sauce is to get involved. Like, take a volunteer position, join a committee, do something, get involved. But then also, how do you give back and pay that forward? And, to younger generations and to newcomers and everything else to make sure that you're spreading that. And then I think the big piece for me, and this goes far beyond home building and community associations and builder associations and things like that. And it's just a good human life lesson, but nobody has ever done anything by themselves. Like to start a company, to be a home builder, to do anything like that. No one just woke up one day and said, I'm going to do this now, and I know everything about it. Like it takes a lot of education, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of other people. And the sooner you get to understand that and take advantage of those who are around you in your community associations, builder associations, and all the wisdom and knowledge that's there, the more successful I think you're going to be.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Jordan, and just a great way to, I think, accumulate a lot of wisdom in a really short time is just see those opportunities, those resources that are out there. And, whether it's in a builders association or just anything else in the community, there are so many ways to do good and so many places that will be very grateful recipients of that service to the extent that anybody can provide it.
I love that story. That was really nice. I think it also giving somebody a shot that you maybe think, might not have that degree or might not have, what we're typically always looking for on a resume, but there's passion and there's dedication that, giving somebody that chance could lead to something very beautiful. I do want to bring up the P word, as I call it, the pandemic, just because I don't want to talk about it. I always say I don't want to talk about it anymore, but I do think that there's some great lessons that came out of the situation in the past couple of years. My question to you is about, was there something that maybe changed in the way your association delivered maybe a certain service or something that really shifted the way things are working right now and is now something that you're going to continue to do going forward, even though hopefully we're getting back to a little bit normal?
Yeah, and I'll give a little background on just our COVID story, almost 2 years ago and how things kind of played out here. You think it's Texas and you think it's, kind of more laissez-faire on the approach and everything. And certainly compared to a lot of places, it is. We went into March of 2020 in the onset of this thing, trying to do something I never thought that we were going to ever have to do, and that's argue for and advocate for the very existence of the industry itself, at least in Dallas County here, which was inclined to shut everything down. And, even the people that build in the surrounding counties, they still are officed in or rely on trades and vendors that are in the main county here. So it would have had a huge impact. You take, a really evolving issue and, that old adage of, people kept telling me, well, there are no new problems. This was a new problem. I wasn't alive in 1918 and either was just about anybody that could give me any advice on how to handle this. So it made us very resourceful in a way. And I think obviously the pandemic's been a horrible thing and caused a ton of loss for so many people. For us, though, if there is a silver lining in there, it allowed our association to elevate itself in terms of the advocacy that we do and really hit home to people, because there are so many times where, we deal with some sort of fee issue or we deal with a, permitting delay here and there. This was everything to play for. This had everything out in front of it. And what we were able to do is use some resources that our national association had put together, dealing with silica and dust on the website. So they had kind of put that together, and it was, dealing with fine particulates, and it's pretty closely akin to a respiratory airborne disease. So we changed it around and were able to get a bunch of industry partners together and have that really become a national standard for how to do your best to mitigate COVID on the job site. And so the fact that we had a plan, we were able to articulate why it would work, in the sense that it would take things seriously and it would make sure that to the extent we can, we can do our part, but at the same time, making sure that in a time when home was becoming more important than ever, that we still had the ability to provide that for people. I took to the airwaves and did, a ton of Facebook Live type of videos and LinkedIn things, really because I didn't have time. Things were changing so quickly. It was almost like a law school final exam every other day with a new problem coming out, that all I could do was just read off the information I had and kind of ramble on about, this is how we solve the problem, and this is how we get through it. We became a trusted source, and I hope we stay that way. And that I think really elevated the authenticity of our messaging and who we are as an organization. And that I think is something that we can be proud of, not just keeping the industry open, but being able to be that trusted source for people from all sides of the debate and all aspects of things on the importance of housing, but also the importance that we needed to give to the measures that would help mitigate the spread of this virus and the impact that it had.
So I know that you have a background as an attorney, which is an amazing advantage to you in such a complicated time like this, I imagine, just to be able to sort through the levels of bureaucracy that I imagine you encountered with regulations. But I'm curious if you could give any advice to our listeners on what skills they might need to navigate new policies or complicated issues like this, because yes, COVID's one of a kind, but we know in the home builder industry, there's constantly new regulations or new large factors that come out that are at play for the industry at large. So are there any pieces of advice that you would give either someone who's part of a builder association listening to this or one of the larger builders, how they should navigate complicated crises like these?
Yeah, I think, as far as the more predictable issues that we have to deal with, i.e. not pandemic related, just some of the fee increases and supply chain challenges and things like that. Hopefully you've got a builders association or just a group together that you can collectively advocate for your common good. In doing so, you really need to share what's the practical impact on your business. And if there are experts out there whether they're just trying to make heads or tails of whatever new regulation is there, or I even put this challenge on the ones that are doing the regulating, is tell us exactly, first of all, what outcome are you trying to get here? What impact do you anticipate there being on the industry? And it's very interesting that with the first question, what are you trying to accomplish? You end up with a whole variety and spectrum of ways to get there, which gives us some flexibility in what we're working on. But then the other part is you'll find a lot of times that there's not the sufficient level of understanding from those that are doing the regulating on how this is going to impact those who ultimately have to pay the cost of it. And then even more still, is there an understanding of the fact that this goes to the overall cost of a home, and that prevents people from, having the opportunity to attain it. So I think it all kind of goes full circle with a little bit of the, just a little bit of the walk a mile in my shoes type of thing, but also it brings a conversation together where we're not getting in the weeds of some technocratic type of argument or semantics, that we're focusing on outcomes and impacts. And those are things that I think people can understand. And ultimately, that's where good policy comes from, is if we can have the impacts and outcome, be in a state of parity where there's a thoughtful conversation around that, instead of, things that really don't matter.
I wanted to follow up on something you said there, though, Phil. Over the last 2 years, since the kind of onslaught of the pandemic, how have you seen the builder industry change? And there's some obvious things in that are, we've had to make these X, Y, Z changes, but I'm thinking more so, from a community point of view and from the Dallas Builders Association point of view, how have you sort of seen builders' attitudes change over the last 2 years?
Pretty early on in this, I put a Post-it note just on my computer that said, "See opportunity in every difficulty." And I think that, builders by nature, they have sort of always done that. You mentioned with my law degree, I'm looking at like the risks they take versus the margins they make. And I'm like, how are you guys able to stay sane? Maybe this is why you drink so much at our after hours events. But this, I think builders by nature, they're pretty optimistic. They're pretty flexible. And I've learned a lot in terms of, on one hand, it seems like they're shooting from the hip and they're trying to find the stuff that they're looking for from every source possible and hoping that everything's going to kind of fall in their favor and fall together. But in many cases, they're also very pragmatic in terms of how they're navigating the supply chain crisis. And they'll just stay on the case until they get what they need. They're almost like a investigative journalist in terms of getting their products. But I think also at the same time, it's just they've had to navigate how they handle consumers and the frustrations that they've been having with everything that we've been facing here. And the best ones there have been able to say, look, here's what we're going to guarantee. And in a really uncertain world, that's, I think, helped a lot of people. Again, being able to empathize with the frustrations that folks have, and just really more than anything, being flexible. I think the ones that had a very rigid way of doing things, that all the related crises to COVID have kind of interrupted, they've struggled the most with it. But the ones that have stayed the most flexible and have seen every difficulty as an opportunity to try something new, they've succeeded as much as anybody can and has in this area, for sure. It's an interesting group. It's just a joy to work for them because it's comprised of so many genuine people. I just heard the other day where we have a member who unfortunately is going through a cancer battle, and a competing member is in builder who builds in the same neighborhood is going through and handling the punch list and walking his jobs just to keep those projects moving. And where do you see that, in other places? I mean, that's just the kind of thing that makes me want to go to the mat for these people and do everything I can for them. And that fuels their passion, fuels my passion. And I know our team at the Dallas BA feels the same way about that.
That's incredible. That's such a amazing thing. And I was going to ask you about collaboration and how, different home builders have collaborated together, and any that kind of stand out to you, because really it's an industry of relationships, whether it's with customers or with each other, with vendors and partners and all that good stuff. That's a fantastic story of relationship and collaboration. But if you have any other ones too that you'd like to share, where you've seen some fantastic collabs and great results of home builders working together.
One of the biggest challenges, other than COVID, that we've faced is, though it's related to COVID, is the city of Dallas here has had a big challenge trying to get building permits processed. And in the way that it's galvanized our members, we had a hearing about a month ago where more than a dozen of them showed up and one by one went up to the microphone and shared the impact that administrative issue is having on their small business. And it really hit home to the council members. It really was portrayed well in the media when they got to hear directly from them, as opposed to from a mouthpiece like me, what the impact has been. And they all collectively stepped up, and they've all collectively, weighed in on this, and they've done so without fear of, retribution or any other difficulties that may happen with their projects. And it's pretty inspiring just to know that they're in each other's corner and they want to kind of work with us to get this fixed. And it's not always, hey, Phil, go out there and do what you can for us. They're right there with us. And again, that's what inspires me to go to work every day.
That's incredible. And I think the other part of it, and you mentioned it, that I think you can look at this industry and the money, because it is big money, it's big purchases, and think, these are all big companies. Like, they're all huge companies. But at the end of the day, like, take away the money and take away the scale and the size and everything, and they're kind of just, they're like, yes, there are some that are large corporations. There are some that are multinational and all across the states and different provinces. But the good majority of who is building local, they are local builders, and they're small companies. Even some of them may even only have a couple dozen employees, like, who are actually working for the company, not including trades and everything. But they're actually small companies. And I think that needs to be taken more into consideration a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's one of the interesting dynamics about our association. On one hand, you've got the top 30 builders that build probably 85% or more of the market when you look at permits. But at the same time, you look at our nearly 1,200 members, and the vast of the builder members, there's about 500 of them. The vast majority are first name, last name custom homes. That's the vast majority of our board and our leadership. So they numerically have a very large voice, but at the same time, you've got the production builders that are building a lot of the market. We have to represent both if we're going to represent the industry. And even if you look among the production builders, these may be huge multinational corporations that are running these things, or Fortune 500 companies that are national builders. But it's so funny how everybody knows everybody, and they've all, worked together. It seems like here in this market, everybody worked at Pulte or Centex once upon a time. And so, the tentacles of that chart go out to the vast majority of, the purchasing managers and division presidents here. So that's another lesson, that don't burn any bridges, because the road's not always linear. Sometimes you may take a few turns that send you back to that same bridge, and you want to kind of leave it better than you found it.
It's so interesting because, it's the true in every market that we've touched. You've always got people, and we always joke, because we talk about, home builder marketing and home builders, and we talk to different clients, and that client moved to that office, and that client moved to that office. But the thing that's really funny is that people aren't moving to different industries. It's not like, I was at home builder, but now I'm, doing marketing someplace else or something like that. It's, I moved from that home builder to that home builder. But everybody seems to, once you seem to touch home building, you're stuck in it. Like you're just in it forever. And that's all you seem to be able to do.
It's addicting, I guess. Sometimes, people, I never thought I was going to make a career in this industry or serving it in the way that I do. And there's a lot of other people. Our immediate past president was a theology major, which, probably with the last couple of years, especially, has been, a fairly good prerequisite for things. We've got, to the prior point, past president named Donnie Evans, who's been, as a Pulte guy and was there for, 30 years, has been involved for 45 years in the production builder realm. So you've heard of like the 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. Well, we have like the 3 degrees of separation from Donnie Evans. It seems like everybody's worked with him or for him. If you've been in the housing industry for more than 10 years, it appears. So it's kind of cool like that. And just a lot of lessons in there in terms of how you conduct yourselves and sort of where that road may take you, within one industry. It's there are a lot of interesting stories for sure.
I do want to take one quick second to go back to the previous point you were making and the balance between those larger production builders, but then the other part of it, which is the smaller, maybe more custom builders, and just how you manage that balance between the two.
It's a good question, and it's actually one that even among my peers are starting to have a larger involvement from national production builders in their market that you have to manage really well. I think, by and large, the reason the production builders are involved and see value is with the advocacy efforts that we do. And, even if we work and successfully save $1,000 on per home on, a fee increase, things like that may be, $1,000 or $2,000 for the custom builder on $1 million home, but that may be several $100,000 for those production builders, depending on how deeply they're invested in the community. So, for us, it's trying to not only have a good relationship with the division president, but people on their operations side that can give us a good picture of, how can we better serve you? How do these issues impact you? And then when you look back on the custom builders and their involvement, they generally have a lot more time that is their own. And so they're able to, in most cases, they're in a better position to dedicate that to shaping our programming and the things that we're doing. But we can't do that to the exclusion of our production builders. So we need to make sure that they, to the extent they can give us some bandwidth, have an influence too on our new programs and what we're doing and how we're getting involved. We're going through that process a little bit here now because we're starting up a professional women in building chapter, which I think is going to be a really good dynamic part of our future and future leadership development and everything else. And it's starting to kind of manifest in a really good balance of production builders, volume builders, and some of the suppliers and subcontractors, and everybody's seeing themselves not as, hey, I'm, a big wig at, this volume builder. They're all here as, in this case, women in the industry that want to make a difference. And when you see that, you don't have the volume label or the custom label or, whatever label. And those are the kind of volunteers that we want. Those are the kind of volunteers that make a difference when you have that mindset.
It's a great way to look at it.
This has been such a great conversation. Thank you again so much for joining us. So one of the things that we like to do at the end of every episode is we like to give our listeners one big takeaway. So we all go around and say what we think that the one big takeaway that we learned or that we want the listener to take from this episode. Does anyone have theirs ready? Oh, Selena, I will let you go first.
Don't even dare, Jordan. You always try to go first. And then he takes my answer. So home builders are building communities and building kind of the place where everybody's living their life and growing families. And I think that my takeaway from the conversation is the foundation of building these fantastic communities for people to live and grow in is having their own community foundation with each other and with other builders really strong and connected and collaborating, and having that set foundation within the home builder community, within the associations, really helps establish that great foundation to create something wonderful for people to buy in and live in.
This is actually a soapbox I stand on generally anyhow. And Phil, you've confirmed my bias, which is we need to stop calling soft skills soft. They're incredibly important. The ability to be likable, the ability to learn from other people, all of those things that we deem as soft skills are actually incredibly important and are not fluffy. They are necessary.
I like that one.
Yeah, I think just building on that soft skills comment, be curious, be empathetic, be willing to try to have that curiosity where you're going to be able to understand what everybody's story is. That's how, if you want to understand the industry better, understand the people that are a part of it. It's a people-driven industry. That's what makes it so fascinating. That's what and makes it so diverse in terms of the people that are a part of it, where they come from, the issues we face, et cetera. And I think the more that curiosity leads you to those conversations, the more empathy that you're going to have on the situation that everybody faces, and the more solid foundation those soft skills are going to build to really be a springboard anywhere you want to go in this industry.
I'm going to build off that a little bit as well, and kind of go back to the earlier discussion we had, where I think you need to look at your community not as what they can provide to you. Sure, I'm going to get into a President Kennedy quote here now, but what you can also do for your community. I think that, community isn't, just the word itself, community. Like, it isn't about, what I can get from this community, but what we can do together. And I think the more we can succeed together, the better each individual is. And I think that is what a good association, and I think that's what we've seen in home building across North America. The more that you can work together, succeed together, the better it is for everybody. So I think that idea of community and benefiting one another and not just yourself is such an important part of success.
I like it. Ask what you can do for your community.
Yeah, exactly. Not what your community can do for you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Phil. This has been an absolute pleasure spending this last hour with you and getting to chat all about the Dallas Builders Association and home building and home builder associations in general. And
my pleasure. I enjoyed it. It's a great conversation. And thank you for being a part of our community and our association.
We look forward to being able to be a big part of it and seeing what we can do for the Dallas Builders Association as well.
That's great.
Cool.
All right, Jordan, what's going on in our next episode?
Well, Selena, our next episode is actually the last episode for us for season 1, which is pretty exciting and pretty cool. It's going to be episode 10, and we've done 10 episodes of our podcast in season 1. I'm so happy and so excited.
It's our season finale.
It's our season finale. That's right.
We should have a party.
We should have a party. It's a good idea. All right. Well,
cake.
Expect invites, everyone. Our guest for our final episode is going to be on the show talking about social media. And that may sound like somewhat of a basic episode, but I think it's going to be really interesting because the world of social media is really changing. And the way that the role that social media plays in sales and in marketing is significantly changing. You know a lot about this, Selena, because you were just at a conference about it. And we're going to pour all of that and all of that learning into our final episode.
And it's definitely not basic. It's like your not so basic social media guide or whatever, or tips or learnings.
There's the title. Your not so basic social media guide or whatever, or tips or learnings.
I love it. SEO on that's going to be amazing.
So make sure you tune in.
This has been a ZGM podcast with your hosts, Jordan Mayer and Selena Hallaby, produced by Santana Blanchette, edited by Shelby Von Groven and Scott Steele, and supported by everyone on the ZGM team.
Woo!